Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next office hours session. It's great to have you joining us on the webinar today. We're going to be live streaming for about half an hour. And then after the webinar, there'll be a Zoom call that you can join, which the link is on the community portal. So thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about a really exciting feature that is in the works for Mautic. So my name is Ruth Cheesley, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm project lead for Mautic. And this is a feature that when I was using Mautic as an agency owner, I really felt a need for. It's one of our most requested features in our ideas form. And in the ideas forum, anyone can suggest a topic, something that they think should be in Mautic, and people in the community can vote and we can have discussions. So it's been a long-standing request. And a year or so ago, we put in a funding to the amazing organization called NLNet. And NLNet are a funding organization that distributes a European Commission funding to open source projects. And we were granted some funding for the first phase of this project. So it's a two-phase project. We have the first phase, which is establishing the foundation things we need in the code. And the second phase is building a really great interface. And this is called Campaign Library. So what the Campaign Library aims to do, like the big picture, is that as a user of Mautic, when you come into Mautic, maybe for the first time, maybe you're new to marketing automation, you will have the ability to go into the Campaign Library and you can pick a campaign that does something you need to accomplish. So it might be that you need to do a double opt-in campaign for your GDPR compliance, or it might be that you need to do an anniversary campaign, like a birthday campaign or an abandoned cart campaign. So as a user, you'll be able to go into this campaign library, search for what you want to do, find a campaign with sample email templates, landing pages, suggested segments, tags, etc., everything that's needed for the campaign. Click on that, and that will install all of those entities for you, and you can then go and modify it for your needs. So you can probably understand, like, it's a really great feature for a user of Mautic, particularly people who need to get started quite quickly. And it's also a really great feature for people who are using Mautic in lots of different places, because you'd also have the ability to export your campaign and all the entities and import it in another place. So it helps with portability. It helps with you being able to manage multiple instances of Mautic and have the same templates, and all round great feature for Mautic. So the first phase of this started, I think it was about 6 months ago, and we started development. We hired a project manager part-time and a developer full-time. And today I'm really excited that our project manager, DJ, is going to be joining us on the streams, who's going to talk through a bit about his experiences of working on this project. So let me bring DJ onto the stream and we'll get the right layout. There we go. Hi, welcome, DJ. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Great to have you joining me, and thanks so much for agreeing to come on the webinar. It's really awesome. So tell us a bit about your background and how you came to be involved with the Campaign Library project.
Right, so I guess my background is in product. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that role, product is typically the team that are responsible for building something that people want. So I guess in this project, I was quite lucky because we already knew that people wanted this piece of work. Yeah. And so, you know, usually a product rolls in two halves. One is working out what problem you're trying to solve and how to solve it, and making sure that's valuable to people. And then the other part is helping the developers actually deliver it and making sure everything goes swimmingly as far as possible. So the difference with this role, I suppose, was that I was only really doing getting it done properly and things like that. And you know, I found out about the role, I think it was on an email list or a group that I'm on. I just happened to be looking for some contract work and just found myself doing this, which is great. But in my past, I have been involved in marketing technology. Well, teams that have worked for me have been involved in it, and I've been involved in choosing different technologies. So I was keen to learn, I think, because certainly there are plenty of platforms out there that promise to do the world, and then it becomes very difficult to do so when you've actually paid the money to do it. To help Mautic with the whole open source thing, because it's something that aligns with my experience in this area, really.
Yeah, and we'd never had a project manager before, but what I was really clear on is that I just don't have enough time in my day as project lead to be able to make sure that this project is delivered well. So when we put the funding in, we really had to fight for having a project manager, because typically they just fund the maintainer. And we were like, that's great, but actually we need someone to run it as well. And it's been so beneficial having someone with that expertise of the whole cycle, and being able to help us out with everything that we didn't know we needed. So yeah, it's been great working with you, and great to have someone else from the UK as well. Woohoo! Sometimes
yes,
I
guess the job title of project manager, I always think of Kevin MacLeod, or even worse, Alan Sugar. Good project manager on The Apprentice. It's a terrible. It can be a terrible job title, and particularly in software projects. I can't code to save my life. I vaguely understand the concepts, but and often get involved in discussions to help make decisions, but I don't understand code. I can't write any PHP at all. So yeah, you have to, you're really trying to facilitate a process rather than do the work yourself. And I think it's quite good to have that dividing line, because if you try and manage a project and do the work yourself, it soon becomes very overwhelming. I found in the past. So yeah, I've been very lucky that Levente, who we had as our developer, has been brilliant. And as, whatever we've thrown at him, he's managed to solve. So that's been great.
Yeah, that's really true. Like, he's done an amazing job. And we also had like a security audit and some issues come up from that. And he's like, oh yeah, no problem, I'll fix those things. And so when you started this was your first kind of major project in open source. What were the challenges that you were anticipating at the start of the project?
So yeah, I've never worked in open source before. And I think I said to you when we first met, the only sort of second or third hand experience I've heard of was from Drupal, actually, when people with a UX background were developing the Drupal interface, and it kind of seemed to go quite well and then quite badly. I think it was Drupal 8 anyway. It was many years ago. So I was a little bit wary, because I was wary of things becoming big issues that maybe weren't big issues, and the ability or the clarity around who was making decisions. And I guess one of the things I wanted to get right from the start was ensuring that I knew who the different characters were that were involved, which is actually quite straightforward with Mautic, and make sure that I was letting people know, and it was very visible, what we were working on, what decisions we were making or had made, and also what things were coming up, so that there was always a narrative that people could latch onto if they were interested to see what we were doing, to challenge it, to message me and be very open. So I suppose that's how I set out. And a lot of those habits, I suppose, I got when I was working in a startup, because it's kind of similar. In a startup, you have lots of things going on at once. You can never keep track of everything. And I would often have founders coming up to me saying, oh, you've chosen to do this that way. I thought you were going to do that way. And I was like, well, no, this and that happened. So, and if you've been following what I was talking about, you would have seen this was happening. So there's always a kind of, not quite a paper trail, but a logical sort of breadcrumb trail of things that we've been working on, things we were discussing, and decisions we were making. So I was very keen to make sure that was the case on this as well.
Yeah, and we've done that. You've done that through several different ways, isn't it? Like, there's a weekly update on the community portal in the assembly, so people can kind of get a sense of what's happened that week. But also, there's been like sessions where you've had like workshops with people, or you've asked a question like, we're thinking about implementing this, and this is how that would work in Mautic, but we want to get some feedback from the people who'd be working with it, or the developers who'd be using it. Like, is this the right way to do this thing in some really complex things, actually, like when we were figuring out what to do if you've already got a campaign that's called the same thing or stuff like that. So I think that's been really helpful from the community. Even if people don't actually join in, they can they had the opportunity. Like we did you know, we invited people in, and some people did, and we got some really great feedback from people, which has been awesome. So
yeah, I mean, prior to product, I'd worked in user experience as well, so I've got experience with, you know, how best to interview people, how to understand the way that they think, to make sure that they're not telling you what they think they would do rather than what they would actually do. So sort of use some of those skills to make sure that we were, you know, developing the right products, basically.
And also sometimes, like I think we encountered this a few times, like we talk about how we're going to build something and we build it, and then you look at it and someone else looks at it and they're like, oh, that doesn't quite work. Like we thought it would work the way we designed it, and then when we build it, people are like, yeah, that's not quite how it would, or like there's something missing, I would look for that here and we hadn't thought to add it there, and stuff like that. So
so part of the trick to the more delivery or development and delivery part is making sure that you've drilled into all the details. And so I spent quite a lot of time with Levente, and also with the help of John, who was fantastically helpful, making sure that I'd understood what was being talked about technically, and asking a lot of questions about edge cases, and making sure we captured everything so that the solution was rounded. You know, there wouldn't be holes in it, or, you know, dramatic things that go wrong where people used it in the real world. So that took a little while to get right. And there were a couple of things where we did it one way, as you say, we did it one way, and then we discussed it, and then we actually decided, no, we should have done it a different way. So we sort of unraveled it and put it back together again.
And there was some, like when we had code reviews, people said, oh, you actually, this should be in the core bundle, and that and so stuff had to be rewritten. But that's the joy of open source, really, isn't it? Like you've got a bigger audience of people who have different experience, different levels of insight into the code, who can then give feedback.
Absolutely. I mean,
challenging as that may be.
Well, I have to say the Mautic team, beyond John, others like Kismani and Martin, all very helpful. And, you know, I'm very aware that a lot of people are doing this sort of volunteer-wise. That's another big difference. So, you know, it's not quite the same where, you know, I could lean on someone and say, well, it is your job to do this. You know, we are paying you to do this. So you have to kind of be a bit more kind, I suppose, to make sure that you've got them on the right side.
So I thought it might be good to just show a little bit of a demo of the work that's been done. I can show that I've got it ready to go, and then afterwards we can maybe talk about like what bits of the project you're most proud of and what have you. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. Here we go. So for those of you who are familiar with campaigns in Mautic, you'll be familiar with this. If you haven't used Mautic 5.2 and later, the user interface might look different. This is the new user interface. So normally, if you wanted to reproduce this, you'd have to clone it. But you can't do that to move it somewhere else. So what we've introduced now is under the option menu, there's export to zip. So you can select one of your campaigns and you can say export to zip. And that will download a zip file of everything in this campaign. So if we have a look at this campaign, we can see we've got a contact source, we've got tags being changed, an email, checking if it's open and changing tags. Then when we go back to campaigns, we have the option here to import a campaign. So I can import the campaign that I've just created. And this option actually says, what it's telling me here is there's already a campaign present. Do I want to update the existing campaign, or do I want to create a new campaign? And it's the same with the email. Do I want to update the existing email that was in the first one, or do I need to create a new email or a new segment? So I'm going to go ahead and say create new entity and then proceed. And then it says import successful. The campaign is switched off by default. So this is telling you that, don't worry, we're not going to start sending things straight away, which is really important in Mautic world because campaigns do stuff. And then we can see we've got ID4, a new campaign here. And we can see it's exactly what I had before. And if I edit it, go into the campaign builder, all the position is as it was before. And then you're ready to go. And if we were to look in the emails, you can see that the email has been cloned as well. And the segments, we've got United States, and then the US2 is the segment that's been cloned. So that's in a very kind of whistle-stop tour exploration of what that does, what this feature does in Mautic. Did everyone see that on the screen? I think people will have seen it on the screen. No, they didn't. Oh my goodness, I forgot to add it to the screen. Oh no, sorry about that. Newbie error. I will start again. Sorry, DJ. So I'll run through this again. So under the menu here, you have import. And if you select a campaign, you can export to zip. And then that downloads a zip file. Then under import, you can choose the zip file that we just exported. And then you can choose update entity, which would update the existing campaign, or you can create a new one. So if it finds something that already exists, then it will ask you whether you want to create a new or use the old one. You also have the option to undo if you've done something wrong here, or create a new, import a new one. And if we go to campaigns, you can see we've got a new campaign here. We've got a new email here, and then we've got a new segment here. So this is the additional segment it's created. So sorry about that newbie error, rookie error of forgetting to share it to the stream. Hopefully that explains the feature to everyone. So what part of that are you most proud of, DJ?
Well, I think the most complicated, technically the most complicated bit was making sure that when you export something, it does bring everything that belongs to that campaign, because there can be quite a lot of nested dependencies going on, whether it's segments, whether it's events, emails, landing pages, assets, and everything comes out. So that's kind of an important part to get right, because if you export a campaign and some of it is missing, then it would become very frustrating to do if you're moving from stuff from one instance to another of Mautic. So I think that's probably the most powerful part of the feature, because then you can literally share your best practice amongst different people in the team who may be working on different clients. If you're an agency, maybe we heard stories of people that use Mautic in a franchise environment, and you may have like 80 different franchise outlets all using different instances of Mautic, and actually standardizing that best practice is a huge benefit, because otherwise it's really hard to share how are your campaigns set up, how are you getting such great results. So I think that's probably the most powerful part of the jigsaw. But I guess what I think we did really well was make sure that we were building a robust feature. And so the chap Marcus, who did the external penetration test, we managed to implement, I think, more or less everything that he recommended. And he was very thorough to make sure that nobody could use this feature to kind of get dodgy code inside these imports and exports. And obviously a big part of using Mautic is the standard of protection of data. We put a lot of effort around making sure that was robust. So I mean, living up to the promises of the brand, I suppose, is probably the most best thing about this piece of work.
Yeah, and the side effect of this is that now every single entity has the ability to be exported individually as well as part of a campaign, and using the API. So we've also made API endpoints for this. So it's not just something that's in the user interface, it's also something that benefits developers. They can build this into their own applications, for example.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the second most powerful thing, is that we actually delivered a sort of web version from the UI, command line commands, and also API endpoints all at the same time. Usually if I was doing this in my previous lives, you'd kind of narrow the scope down and just do one of those and then have follow-ups to do the others. But we've managed to do all in one. So really good.
Yeah. And so what did you find the most challenging in the project? And you can say the project lead. I won't take offense. Hopefully not, though.
not challenging as such, because it went pretty well most of the time. I think probably the most frustrating bit was testing, because we were using, although it's great, we were using GitLab and different things to do testing. Eventually, I actually installed my local copy and it became a lot simpler. But that for me involved using GitHub and all loads of command line stuff, which again, not being technically that good, was a challenge to me, that's for sure. But again, I sort of learned loads through that. But the frustration around being able to very quickly test things and make sure you could tick them off and say that's definitely done, that took a lot longer, and we had to go over, and we went over a few iterations of that to make sure we got it right.
Yeah, that was when we were having trouble with Gitpod, I think, wasn't it? And like it wasn't spinning up properly, and that's very frustrating if you don't have a local instance. But
definitely,
yeah, great. And you were part of the developing like the phase 2 brief. So do you want to talk a little bit about what's coming next? Because this is just phase 1, so implementing the underlying code, which, like you say, was really complex and took a lot of work, and the basic import export. So what's coming down the pipeline? What should people be excited about?
So we've proposed a phase 2 to NLNet for funding, and that includes effectively bringing this to all of the users through the Mautic UI. So that means that when you log into Mautic, you look at your campaign screen, there would be an option to go and look at the campaign library. You'll be able to see the campaigns that other people have added to the campaign library, and you'll be able to add your own to the campaign library too. So it gives you a much wider range of resources that you can use to bring down. And we've proposed using a tool that I think is used for Mautic Marketplace already, so Packagist, to publish that, to help moderate those campaigns as they come in. And so it gives a much more of a community feel to the Mautic UI as it stands at the moment, because effectively you could generate hundreds and thousands of these campaigns and really have them graded and reviewed by people. So I think it's quite exciting. We've got our fingers crossed to make sure it goes ahead. I think earlier this week we heard we were into round 2 of the review. So we're going to find out probably at the end of the summer, I think it was, whether that's
hopefully sooner rather than later. And the exciting thing for me is that the work we do on the user interface in this project will also have an impact on the marketplace, because it uses the same interface. It will be using the same interface. So the Mautic Marketplace will also get a facelift as a result of the second phase of the campaign library. And it will make it possible for people to like rate and review plugins, that rate and review campaigns, potentially in the future extending that to also allow you to install themes through the same system. So it will be a massive bonus for our ecosystem. And potentially in the future, we want to have a middle layer where you could say, actually, I want to charge for this. And like as a developer, you've created a plugin, you want to charge for it. If we host it on the official marketplace, then a small percentage, which you decide, would come to Mautic, and then you get the rest of the revenue. So it also has lots of potential, I think, for like really helping Mautic to grow, helping our users to have those really important campaigns, like you were saying, and just use Mautic more effectively, Yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Mautic as very much the community leader, because some other competitors do have similar functions. I think Mautic would be the one that would be coming from the actual users a bit more.
Yeah, and we'll obviously have checks and balance to make sure that they're secure and they're not doing anything bad with the stuff that you're importing and things like that, which has been great actually with NLNet. They gave us an accessibility audit and also a security audit, which, like you said earlier, gave us some really great insights. So yeah, okay. So I think we're nearly at the end. My camera seems to have almost given up the ghost again. Any other closing comments that you wanted to make, DJ, or anything that you'd like to share with the the audience, maybe like what advice you might give to someone who takes on a role like you've taken on in Mautic.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think my advice would be fairly similar to working in a commercial organization. It's about knowing the people that you're working with, understanding your stakeholders. I suppose the extra element with open source is making sure you understand the influence of the community, not just kind of people that are directly closely involved. And make sure you're keeping your communication up, so that people can see what you're doing. And you may not have input, and that's often not a bad thing. It means that everything's fine. Just to keep going. And I suppose the similar advice around making sure you know what you're delivering is the same. It's the same in any kind of software, I think. Really being able to think through all of the details, all of the edge cases, and make sure there's not kind of something horrible under the carpet that may come up and bite you.
Yeah, I've actually really appreciated how you've been documenting all of that, like the risk logs, and making sure that you're really clear when someone's like, oh, we could do this, and you're like, yeah, great, not in scope, next phase. Nice idea, but not in scope. And that really does help us to keep focus on what we need to do, rather than let it just endlessly creep. So
I'm quite proud that we got it done on time and slightly below budget. Although coming into it did seem like we had a lot of time to do what needed to be done, but it turned out we did need all that time.
That's definitely been my learning from this process. Like, people were saying to me, oh, that's a really long time, you don't need that time to develop a feature. And I kind of was like, it's really complex, folks. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done, and we need to make sure we do it right. So we'd rather have more time and deliver under budget than run out of time and only have a half-baked facility, half-baked feature. So,
I think we could have gone faster if we'd had more than one developer. But actually, the overhead to having more than one developer may not have paid off in the end. So it's worked out well, I think.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thanks so much for joining me on the stream today, DJ. It's been great to have you here. We've really appreciated your support for this project. It has been absolutely fantastic working with you over the last 6 months. So big thank you for all of that. And fingers crossed we might be able to get you working on the phase 2 project when it comes through.
Well, yes,
I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Absolutely. It's been great to work with you too, Ruth, and with the rest of the team. Everyone's been very supportive and very nice. So
awesome.
All the best with it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
See you soon. Bye.
See you soon. Okay, folks, so that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the stream. I hope giving you a little bit of a snapshot of the feature that we're developing has given you a bit of excitement over like what's coming and particularly what's coming in phase 1. We do still need people to actually help us with testing this pull request. So if you would like to test the campaign import and export and help us to get it merged, I will pop the link to that in the chat for all of the streams. And you can help us by going and looking at PR, applying that PR in your local environment, or we can tell you how to do that on a GitHub code space, and then leaving a review to say, yeah, this works, or these are some bugs or suggestions that I have for improvement. We're hoping it will ship in Mautic 7, which we're in the process of making the pre-release available for. So the more help you can give us, the better to actually get this merged soon and get it out to you in Mautic 7. So those of you who've joined these webinars before will know that we now end the live stream and we adjourn to a conversation in a Zoom webinar, the Zoom discussion. Anyone can join. If you go to community.mautic.org, you'll see at the bottom meetings, and you'll see this meeting listed, and you can just click to join, and that will show you the link. You can come join us on Zoom. If you've got any questions about what we talked about here, or you've got any questions about Mautic, or there's something you'd like to discuss, just come and chat. It's my office hours, so it's an open half-an-hour discussion for you to come and talk about anything to do with Mautic. So do come and join us if you're watching live on the stream. If not, feel free to drop us a message on Slack. You can get an invite at mautic.org/Slack. I'll just pop that up on the screen for you now. And you can find all kinds of channels there, everything from Mautic 7 to the pet channel to the community team, the product team, and what have you. So mautic.org/Slack if you'd like to join us there. Thanks, everyone. Hope you've had a really great day. Appreciate you joining us on the live stream, and I'll see some of you over in Zoom shortly. Take care. Bye.